Welcome to the 1000 Nights and One Night. Now, when it was the 29th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the beautiful youth said to the broker, 'Take over the 1,000 dirhams.' And when the broker heard this, he knew that the case was suspicious. So he carried the collar to the syndic of the bazaar, and the syndic took it to the governor, who was also prefect of police, and said to him falsely enough, 'This necklet was stolen from my house, and we have found the thief in trader's dress.' So before I was aware of it, the watch got round me, and making me their prisoner, carried me before the governor, who questioned me of the collar. I told him the tale I had told to the broker, but he laughed and said, 'These words are not true.' Then, before I knew what was doing, the guard stripped off my clothes and came down with palm rods upon my ribs, till for the smart of the stick I confessed. It was I who stole it, saying to myself, "'Tis better for thee to say I stole it, than to let them know that its owner was murdered in thy house, for then would they slay thee to avenge her." So they wrote down that I had stolen it, and they cut off my hand, and scalded the stump in oil. When I swooned away for pain, but they gave me wine to drink, and I recovered, and taking up my hand was going to my fine house, when my landlord said to me, "Inasmuch, O my son, as this hath befallen thee, thou must leave my house, and look out for another lodging for thee, since thou art convicted of theft. Thou art a handsome youth, but who will pity thee after this?" "O my master," said I, "bear with me but 2 days or 3 till I find me another place." He answered, "So be it." I went away and left me. I returned to the house, where I kept weeping and saying, "How shall I go back to my own people when my hand lopped off, and they know not that I am innocent? Perchance, even after this, Allah may order some matter for me." And I wept with exceeding weeping. Grief beset me, and I remained sore troubled for 2 days. But on the 3rd day my landlord came suddenly in to me, and with him some of the guard from the syndic of the bazaar, who had falsely charged me with stealing the necklet. I went up to them and asked, "What is the matter?" However, they pinioned me without further parley, and threw a chain about my neck, saying, "The necklet which was with thee proved to be the property of the Wazir of Damascus, who was also her viceroy." And they added, "It was missing from his daughter's house 3 years ago. At the same time, his youngest daughter, went missing." When I heard these words, my heart sank within me, and I said to myself, "Thy life is gone beyond a doubt. By Allah needs must I tell the chief my story, and if he will, let him kill me, and if he please, let him pardon me." So they carried me to the Wazir's house, and made me stand between his hands. When he saw me, he glanced at me out of the corner of his eyes, and said to those present, "Why did you lop off his hand? This man is unfortunate, and there is no fault in him. Indeed, ye have wronged him in cutting off his hand." When I heard this, I took heart, and my soul presaging good, I said to him, "By Allah, O my lord, I am no thief. But they calumniated me with the vile calumny, and they scourged me most midwest in the market, and biting me confessed till for the pain of the rods I lied against myself, and I confessed the theft, albeit I am altogether innocent of it." "Fear not," quoth the viceroy, "no harm shall come to thee." Then he ordered the syndic of the bazaar to be imprisoned, and said to him, Give this man the blood money for his hand, and if thou delay, I will hang thee and seize all thy property." Moreover, he called to his guards, who took him and dragged him away, leaving me with the chief. Then they loosed, by his command, the chain from my neck, and unbound my arms. And he looked at me, and he said, "O my son, be true with me, and tell me how this necklace came to thee." And he repeated these verses, "Truth best befits thee, albeit truth shall bring thee to burn on the threatened fire." "By Allah, O my lord," answered I will tell thee nothing but the truth. Then I related to him all that had passed between me and the first lady, and how she had brought me the second, and slain her out of jealousy, and I detailed for him the tale to its full. And when he heard my story, he shook his head, and struck his right hand upon the left, and putting his kerchief over his face, he wept a while, and then repeated, I see the woes of the world abound, and worldly sick with spleen and teen. There's one who the meeting of two shall part, and who part not are few and far between. Then he turned to me and said, Know, O my son, that the elder damsel who first came to thee was my daughter, whom I used to keep closely guarded. When she grew up, I sent her to Cairo and married her to her cousin, my brother's son. After a while, he died, and she came back, but she had learnt wantonness and ungraciousness from the people of Cairo. So she visited 3-4 times and at last brought her young sister. Now, they were sisters German, and much attracted to each other, and when that event happened to the eldest, she disclosed her secret to her sister, who desired to go out with her. So she asked thy leave and carried her to thee, after which she returned alone, and finding her weeping, I questioned her of her sister, but she said, I know nothing of her. However, she presently told her mother privily of what had happened, and then she ceased not to weep and say, By Allah, I shall cry for her till I die. Nor did she give over mourning till her heart broke, and she died. And things fell out after that fashion. See then, O my son, what hath come to pass. And now I desire thee not to thwart me in what I am about to offer thee. And it is that I propose to marry thee to my youngest daughter, for she is a virgin and born of another mother, and I will take no dower of thee, but on the contrary will appoint thee an allowance, and thou shalt abide with me in my house in the stead of my son. So be it, I answered. And how could I hope for such good fortune? Then he sent at once for the Kazi and witnesses, and let me write my marriage contract with his daughter, and I went into her. Moreover, he got me from the syndic of the bazaar a large sum of money, and I became in high favor with him. During this time, news came to me that my father was dead, and the wazir dispatched a courier with letters bearing the royal sign manual to fetch me the money which my father had left behind for me. And now I am living in all the solace of life. Such was the manner of the cutting off of my right hand. I marveled at his story, continued the Jew, and I abode with him 3 days, after which he gave me much wealth. And I set out and traveled eastward till I reached this your city, and the sojourn suited me right well. So I took up my abode here, and there befell me what thou knowest with the hunchback. Thereupon the king of China shook his head. This story of thine is not stranger and more wondrous and marvelous and delectable than the tale of the hunchback, and so needs must I hang the whole number of you. However, there yet remains the tailor, who is the head of all the offence. And he added, O tailor, if thou canst tell me anything more wonderful than the story of the hunchback, I will pardon you all your offences. Thereupon the man came forward and began to tell the tale of the tailor. Know, O king of the age, that most marvellous was that which befell me but yesterday, before I foregathered with the hunchback. It so chanced that in the early day I was at the marriage feast of one of my companions, who had gotten together in his house some 20 of the handicraftsmen of his city, amongst them tailors and silk spinners and carpenters, and others of the same kidney. As soon as the sun had risen, they set food before us that we might eat, when behold, the master of the house entered, and with him a foreign youth, a well-favoured of the people of Baghdad, wearing clothes as handsome could be. And he was of right comely presence, save that he was lame of one leg. He came and saluted us, and we stood up to receive him. But when he was about to sit down, he espied among us a certain man, which was a barber. Whereupon he refused to be seated, and would have gone away, but we stopped him. And our host also stayed him, making oath that he should not leave, and asked him, What is the reason of thy coming in and going out again at once? Whereto he answered, By Allah, O my lord, do not hinder me, for the cause of my turning back is yon barber of bad omen, yon blackface, yon ne'er-do-well. When the housemaster heard these words, he marvelled with extreme marvel, and said, How cometh this young man who haileth from Baghdad to be so troubled and perplexed with this barber? Then he looked at the stranger and said, Explain the cause of thine anger against the barber. O fair company, quoth the youth, there befell me a strange adventure with this barber in Baghdad, which is my native city. He was the cause of the breaking of my leg and of my lameness, and I have sworn never to sit in the same place with him, nor even tarry in any town where he happens to abide. And I have bidden adieu to Baghdad, and travelled far from it, and came to stay in this your city. Yet I have hardly passed one night before I met him again. But not another day shall go ere I fare forth from him. Said we to him, Allah upon thee, tell us thy tale. And the youth replied, the barber changing colour from brown to yellow as he spoke, Know, O fair company, that my father was one of the chief merchants of Baghdad, and Almighty Allah had blessed him with no son but myself. When I grew up and reached man's estate, my father was received into the mercy of Allah, whose name shall be exalted, and left me money and eunuchs, servants and slaves, and I used to dress well and diet well. Now Allah had made me hater of womankind, and one day I was walking along a street of Baghdad. A party of females met me face to face in the footway, so I fled from them, and entering an alley which was no thoroughfare, sat down upon a stone bench at the other end. I had not sat there long before the lattice window of one of the houses opposite was thrown open, and there appeared at it a young lady. As she were the full moon at its fullest, never in my life saw I her like, and she began to water some flowers on the window-sill. She turned right and left, and seeing me watching her, shut the window and went away. Thereupon fire was suddenly enkindled in my heart. My mind was possessed with her, and my woman-hate turned to woman-love. And I continued sitting there, lost to the world, till sunset, when, lo, the Qazi of the city came riding by with his slaves before him, and his eunuchs behind him, and dismounting, entered the house in which the damsel had appeared. By this I knew that he was her father. So I went home sorrowful, and cast myself upon the carpet-bed in grief. Then my handmaids flocked in and sat about me, unknowing what ailed me, and I addressed no speech to them, and they wept and they wailed over me. Presently in came an old woman, who looked at me and saw with a glance what was the matter with me. She sat down by my head, and spoke me fair, saying, O my son, tell me all about it, and I will be the means of thy union with her. So I related to her what had happened, and she answered, O my son, this one is the daughter of the Qazi of Baghdad, who keepeth her in the closet seclusion, and the window where thou sawest her is her floor, whilst her father occupies the large saloon in the lower story. She is often there alone, and I am wont to visit at the house, so thou shalt win her to save through me. Now set thy wits to work, and be of good cheer. With these words she went away, and I took heart at what she said, and my people rejoiced that day. By and by the old woman returned, looking chop-and-fallen, and said, O my son, do not ask me how I fared with her. When I told her that, she cried at me, If thou hold not thy peace, O hag of ill omen, and leave not such talk, I will entreat thee as thou deservest, and to thee die by the foulest of deaths. But needs must I have her a second time. When I heard this, it added ailment to my ailment, and the neighbors visited me, and judged that I was not long for this world. But after some days, the old woman came to me, and putting her mouth close to my ear, whispered, O my son, I claim from thee the gift of good news. With this my soul returned to me, and I said, Whatever thou wilt shall be thine. Thereupon she began. Yesterday I went to the young lady who, seeing me broken in spirit and shedding tears from reddened eyes, asked me, O naughty mine, what ails thee? And that I see thy breast so straitened? And I answered her, weeping bitterly, O my lady, I am just come from the house of a youth who loves thee, and who is about to die for the sake of thee. Quoth she, and her heart was softened, And who is this youth of whom thou speakest? And quoth I, He is to me as a son and the fruit of my vitals. He saw thee some days ago at the window watering thy flowers, and espying thy face and wrist, he fell in love at first sight. I let him know what had happened to me the last time I was with thee, whereupon his ailment increased, and he took to the pillow, and he is not now but a dead man, and no doubt whatever of it. At this she turned pale and asked, All this for my sake? And I answered, Aye, by Allah, what wouldst thou have me to do? Said she, Go back to him, and greet him for me, and tell him that I am twice more heartsick than he is. And on Friday, before the hour of public prayer, bid him here to the house, and I will come down and open the door for him. Then I will carry him up to my chamber, and foregather with him for a while, and let him depart before my father returns from the mosque. When I heard the old woman's words, all my sickness suddenly fell from me. My anguish ceased, and my heart was comforted. I took off what clothes were on me and gave them to her, and as she turned to go, she said, Keep a good heart. I have not a jot of sorrow left, I replied. My household and intimates rejoiced in my recovery, and I abode thus till Friday, when behold, the old woman came in and asked me how I did, and which I answered that I was well and in good case. Then I donned my clothes, perfumed myself, and sat down to await the congregation going into prayer, that I might betake myself to her. But the old woman said to me, Thou hast time and to spare, so thou wouldst do well to go to the Hammam and have thy hair shaven off, especially after thy ailment, so as not to show traces of sickness. This were the best way, answered I. I have just now bathed in hot water, but I will have my head shaved. Then I said to my page, Go to the bazaar and bring me a barber, a discreet fellow, and one not inclined to meddling or impertinent curiosity, or likely to split my head with his excessive talk. The boy went out at once and brought him back this wretched man, this sheikh of ill omen. When he came in and saluted me, and I returned his salutation, then quoth he, Of a truth, I see thee thin of body. And quoth I have been ailing. He continued, Allah drive far away from thee thy woe and thy sorrow and thy trouble and thy distress. Allah grant thy prayer, said I. He pursued, All gladness to thee, O my master, for indeed recovery is come to thee. Dost thou wish to be polled or to be blooded? Indeed, it was the traditions of Ibn Abbas, Allah accept of him, that the apostle said, Whoso cutteth his hair on a Friday, the Lord shall avert him from 70 calamities. And again is related of him also that he said, Cupping on a Friday, keeping from loss of sight and a host of diseases. Leave this talk, I cried. Come shave me my head at once, for I can't stand it. So he rose and put forth his hand in the most leisurely way, and took out a kerchief and unfolded it. And lo, it contained an astrolabe, with 7 parallel plates mounted in silver. Then he went to the middle of the court, and raised head and instrument towards the sun's rays, and looked for a long while. When this was over, he came back and said to me, Know that there have elapsed of this our day, which be Friday, and this Friday be the 10th of the month, so far in the 653rd year since the Hijra of flight of the Apostle, on whom be the bestest of blessings and peace, and the 7,320th year of the year of Alexander, 8 degrees and 6 minutes. Furthermore, the ascendant of our day is according to the exact science of computation, the planet Mars, and it so happeneth that Mercury is in conjunction with him, denoting an auspicious moment for hair cutting. And this also maketh manifest to me that thou desirest union with a certain person, and that your intercourse will not be propitious. But after this there occurreth a sign respecting a matter which will befall thee, and whereof I will not speak. O thou, cried I, by Allah, thou weariest me, and scatterest my wits, and thy forecast is other than good. I sent for thee to poll my head, and not else. So up and shave me, and prolong not thy speak. By Allah, replied he, if thou but knew what is about to befall thee, thou wouldst do nothing this day. And I counsel thee to act as I tell thee by computation of the constellations. By Allah, said I, neither did I see a barber who excelled in judicial astrology save thyself. But I think I know that thou art most prodigal of frivolous talk. I sent for thee only to shave my head, but thou comest and pesterest me with sorry prattle. What more wouldst thou have? Replied he. Allah hath bounteously bestowed on thee a barber who is an astrologer, one learned in alchemy and white magic, syntax, grammar, and lexicology, the arts of logic, rhetoric, and elocution, mathematics, arithmetic, and algebra, astronomy, astromancy, geometry, theology, the traditions of the apostles, and the commentaries on the Quran. Furthermore, I have read books galore and digested them, and have had experience of affairs and comprehended them. In short, I have learned the theory and the practical of all the arts and sciences. I know everything of them by rote, and I am a past master in total rex scabili. Thy father loved me for my lack of officiousness, Argyle, to serve thee in a religious duty incumbent on me. I am no busybody, as thou seemest to suppose, and on this account I am known as the silent man, also the modest man. Wherefore it behoveth thee to render thanks to Allah Almighty, and not cross me, for I am a true counselor to thee, and benevolently minded towards thee. Would that I were in thy service a whole year, that thou mightest do me justice, and I would ask thee no wage for all this. When I heard his flow of words, I said to him, doubtless that will be my death this day. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. And so I, too, stop with my storytelling. Till the morrow.